showed any sign of, you know, fatigue or disturbance at all.
One big businessman, he came and he was saying, Swamiji, I have this factory here in Delhi and I have that factory in Zonpur, and he gave a list of his things, and then he said, I have all this but I can't sleep. So Prabhupada looks at him and he says, that is why you can't sleep. You give all this to me, then you can peacefully sleep. So then he turns to somebody who was sitting there and he said, I think it was Gopal Krishnaji. He said, take his address. So this man says, no Swamiji, I can come anytime. Hey, you can come anytime, but we should also be able to come anytime. Take his address. And then he was ready, you know. So yes, and said, no, Swamiji. Prabhupada said, no, take his address. We will relieve you of your problem. You give some of these things to Krishna, then you will be peaceful. And he was like smashed right there. And he did give his address. He had to.
We brought Miss Mexico to see Prabhupada. You know, in those days we were young and we thought any celebrity, let's bring them to Prabhupada. So we brought Miss Mexico, and she came in. She was nice, you know, fluttering her eyelashes. And obviously she, as all these, you know, Miss America, Miss Mexico, they spend their year just going around and doing events and, you know, getting their picture taken and smiling and saying a few nice words here and there. So she was more or less in that mood. She came with a few gentlemen. So as she sat in front of Prabhupada, she made her customary spiel. She said it was very nice being in Mexico, in Spanish I was translating. She said, I'm very glad to be here. I've enjoyed the program very much, and you know, I hope to come again sometime. So Prabhupada said to her, why do you want to come again? In other words, he was not at all concerned with the glamour of it all. He was very sober, and he said, why do you want to come again? And she couldn't really answer. You know, no one ever asked questions like that to Miss Mexico. And he asked her very seriously, why do you want to come? And we had Prabhupada's books here.
Yadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana bahita kishe. Yadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana bahita kishe. Nitai gorera, apara karuna, kedita shakala deshe. Nitai gorera, apara karuna, kedita shakala deshe. Yadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana bahita kishe. Paschatira joto, Vavidura chari, Shunyavadi mayavadi. Tadhira udhara, korivare mana, hera kondaya nidhi.
Shall the bees first? Yes, Marty. I'm finishing it now. Where are the pumpkins and cap? Gopal is on his favorite date. He hasn't come yet? Oh, when would he come? When would we got all this?
Good. Go get some more garlands. This is a sweet restaurant. Yes, Dadu. Get me some water, please. All right, Dadu. Here it is. Thank you. Namaskar, Bhagwan. How's our Lakshmi? I don't see her around.
Well, she'll be with us soon.
Oh, I see. Sit down. Thank you. Yes, sir. Sit down. This is the greatness of our tradition. Yes, it is so beautiful. Please. So nice to see you. I came here for the Dharma also.
Mom. Are you Rajeshwari? What were you doing? Playing? Offer your obeisances to Tulsi Maharani. Come. Oh, you arrived. How are you, Rajni? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. When do we get to hear the good news? Oh, that floor lady. Rajni, you better not do any work or else Ma will get very angry with us. Oh, no, Bodhi. I've been resting all these days. Please let me do something today. But there are enough people to attend to all the things. Bodhi, I'm just going to get some garlands for Radha Krishna. Please. Let's go. Didi, are the garlands for Radha Krishna ready? Yes, they are. Just take it easy. Oh, they're beautiful. Radheshwari Ma, sit here. I'll be back soon. Come, dear, come.
Sing so well, don't they? Somebody please get some water.
Gently now, Krishna. That's it. Yes, that's it. Take it away, Krishna. Please, will someone call the midwife?
Go quickly, go call the midwife. Quickly, go. Yes, I'm going. Yes, sir. Take this and quickly get some water to wash hands. Yes, sir. You have served us excellent Prasad. May all your desires be fulfilled. Maharaj, I'm just an instrument. Actually, he is the doer. Sir, here's the water. After all, who am I to serve you, Prasad? That is the truth. This is all the mercy of Lord Krishna who has given me this opportunity to serve you personally. I'm very fortunate indeed to have all of you over here. Ram Krishna Ram! 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 Krishna Krishna. People at times are so foolish, Maharaj. Elevating an ordinary man to the status of God and singing his glories everywhere. Korman Babu, these are the traits of Kali Yuga. Just wait and watch what will happen. Krishna, Krishna, show them the way. Krishna. Korman Babu! Korman Babu! Chandra! Chandra, what happened? There's a good news. Good news? Lakshmi is in labor. Oh, really? That's why I've come to take you. Alright, but these kids will leave right now and then we shall go. Alright. So what is it, Korman Babu? Is there some good news? Yes, Maharaj. That's my wife. She's in labor. Really? Yes. Your son will be a devotee of Lord Krishna. My son? Chandra, tell me, how is Rajni? How did it all happen? Actually, we all were celebrating Nandotsav in the house. All of us were engrossed in the bhajans. The devotees were singing the bhajans. Suddenly there was some confusion and we found that Rajni is in pain. Oh, so that's how it all happened. I hope she's better now.
Come, Daima. This way, Daima. Oh, Daima has eyes, yes. Inside, Daima, yeah.
But on the auspicious day of Nandotsav, did you see how the Panditji spoke about me getting a son? Yes. Don't worry, don't get. I just can't wait reaching there.
Maji, the hot water's here. Maji? It's very hot, Maji.
Thank you.
Carefully.
Don't worry, we'll be reaching there very soon. Everything will be all right.
Baba has come.
So, that's all right. She's all right. Namaskar. God bless you, my son. God bless you.
Congratulations. You have got a son.
Your son will be devoted to Lord Krishna. Congratulations. Thank you.
No, Babaji. Not until you give me a gift.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. Here it is.
Thank you.
Son. How's your son?
It's a boy. Congratulations. Go inside.
Thank you.
What a sweet baby. So plump. Oh, I love the baby. No, don't cry. Don't cry, baby. So
My son. How are you?
I'm fine. And you?
I'm Charan. It's a beautiful name. Bye-bye, Charan. Bye-bye, Charan. Bye-bye. We have already appeared. What's the matter, Panditji? Are you sure the time of birth is correct? It's correct, isn't it? Yes. It's absolutely correct, Panditji. I have never seen such a horoscope before. Even my forefathers had never seen such a horoscope. Why, Panditji? What is the matter? Amazing. Amazing. This is the first time I have come across such a horoscope. The boy is destined to be a sannyasi. Sannyasi? Yes. But this boy will become a unique sannyasi of this age because he will have with him name, fame, money, and everything. How is it possible, Panditji? This is exactly what surprises me. This boy will be the pride of 7 generations. Yes. Wow. Hariho. When he reaches the age of 70, he will cross the 7 seas and will preach our religion in the world. A great boy. A great boy. In a span of 11 years, he will establish 108 temples. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 108. Did you hear what the Panditji just said? How Naveen Charan will cross the 7 seas? He will preach our religion and will establish 108 temples. Our son will be a unique sannyasi. Oh, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Can anyone hear me? Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you. So Hare Krishna once again to all the devotees who are joining in this evening for continued Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Prabhupada. So as we welcome you here, already there have been quite a lot of happenings beginning from this morning. So this short video that we have been looking at is taken from the Abhay Charan series. Many of you would remember that was put together by the late Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So it's glorious that we can reflect and remember Maharaj for being a stalwart disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and at the same time also remember the wonderful pastime of Srila Prabhupada as he made his appearance into this world. So I'd just like to give you a highlight of what this celebration would have entailed, some of the main aspects, and also we'll have Hari Kirtan to give us some short video clips of the celebration, the program this morning. So the program would have entailed many different aspects, but some of the key areas this morning was I would say, like, that, the Abhishek, the bathing ceremony of Srila Prabhupada. So that was amazing. And then we had reading of offerings, reading of meaning of Vyasa Puja, and also reading of offerings by many devotees, both senior devotees. Paramat Prabhu was there, Haridas Prabhu would have read Satsuk Maharaj's offering, and then locally here also, congregation devotees here, devotees such as Sanjay Prabhu, Bhakti Machi, and so forth, they would have read their offerings to Srila Prabhupada. As you all know, the devotees here at Hare Krishna Sai Center, we would have put together the Vyasa Puja book. So that was something very special. And then also coming down to the end for the midday, the Pushpanjali, offering petals to Srila Prabhupada, and Guru Puja Arti. And then also devotees for the first time, I've seen this, that for the first time today, they all got the opportunity to offer a garland to Srila Prabhupada. So that was very spectacular and amazing incident to see how everyone got an opportunity to offer a very beautiful garland to Srila Prabhupada on his appearance today. So these are some of the key highlights of this morning's Vyasa Puja program. So we'd like to turn over to, so for this evening, we'll be having some short presentations by few of the senior devotees in our Caribbean here, Mother Panchatadva, Shantavigra Prabhu, Paramatma Prabhu. But before that, we would like to ask Har Kirtan if he can please share with us some clips of this morning's celebration. I think also he has a 125th anniversary presentation that he would like to show to us. So Har Kirtan, maybe you can introduce what you're going to show and go right ahead. Har Kirtan.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Srila Prabhupada ki
Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Jadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana palita kishe. Dadhirani kate konjana ashi belaita horina. Dadhirani kate konjana ashi belaita horina. Shabya jiva rupe kadite dadhira hoito aguya. Yadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana palita kishe. Deshe deshe hari vigraha shiva arati ratri dine. Deshe deshe hari vigraha shiva arati ratri dine. Rath jatra adi mahotsava shobho shikaita kon jane. Yadi Prabhupada hoito, tobe ki hoito, e jivana palita kishe.
Gate aise utama gate
Shri Guru Charane Rate Aise Uttama Gate
Prasade Puri Sarva Asha
Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Bolate Prasade Puri Sarva Asha
Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Sabudan Dilodi Jane Jane Prabhu Sabudan Dilodi Jane Jane Prabhu Divigani Prakasito Divigani Prakasito Prema Bhakti Taha hote Ave dave nasa jate
Prema Bhakti hoite Ave jave nasa jate
Prema Bhakti Taha hote Ave dave nasa jate
So now I would like to invite Hari Kirtan, who is going to read for us an offering that was compiled by the GBC, Srila Veerbahu Maharaj, the governing body commissioner of ISKCON in Guyana. So Maharaj would have put together an offering, and we would like to request Hari Kirtan to read that offering to Srila Prabhupada.
A humble offering by His Grace Veerbahu Das, GBC and Initiating Guru, Guyana. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Dear Srila Prabhupada, accept my most humble obeisances at your divine lotus feet. All glory is unto you, my only shelter, Lord and Master, the reservoir from which I get my spiritual and material nourishment. On this glorious occasion, my prayer is that I may always be able to express my love for you in a tangible way. I generally think that I have so many feelings for you, but I have learned from your life's example that such feelings should also have a visible product. Otherwise, what is the proof that it isn't only sentimentality, that isn't just, quote-unquote, a ceremony of fruits and flowers? Your love for your Guru Maharaj took the form and shape of a gigantic worldwide society of Vaishnavas, ISKCON. You are spreading his name and fame all over the world, now and for all time to come. You are giving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the whole Sampradaya a most respectable place in all the histories of the world. Thus, your love for Krishna and humankind has crystallized far beyond just sentiments or words. As much as it can be compared in my god brothers and sisters, and in your many followers, I see a similar example. Their love for you is always manifesting in something substantial. Innumerable temples opened and deities established, uninterrupted production of your absolute books and incalculable numbers of them distributed, thousands and thousands of lost souls becoming sane and devoted followers of yours. It is all going on by their true sacrifice. How to join in this grandiose homage? In your words, we will always find all the answers. Quote, Brahma, the original living being within the material world, taught us the way of sacrifice. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interests for the satisfaction of a second person. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaged in sacrificing his interests for others, either in the form of a family, society, community, country, or the entire human society. But perfection of such sacrifices is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Person, the Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything, because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures, and because He is the maintainer, He's the maintainer of the performer of sacrifice, as well as the supplier of the ingredients of sacrifice, it is He only and no one else who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, and plans for total improvement of the human condition. But no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord, as it is advised in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, there is no peace in the world. If all men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the Supreme Proprietor and Friend of all. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.6.28 Purport. You have described this as the peace formula for the world, and by applying this purport with you as the center, we get the peace formula for our movement and for each one of us. My prayer today is therefore that I may be able to do what you just described, to make my life a continuous sacrifice of my own interests for your satisfaction. This is my true interest, as I have come to know you by your mercy. And true sacrifice is to follow your order in all circumstances of happiness and distress. Quote, in executing penance, one must be determined to return home back to Godhead and must decide to undergo all types of tribulations for that end. Even for material prosperity, name, and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penance. Otherwise, no one can become an important figure in this material world. Why then are there severe types of penance for the perfection of devotional service? An easygoing life and attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. The Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, He wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. The order is received from the Lord, either directly or through the bona fide spiritual master, and to execute that order, however painstaking, is the severe type of penance. One who follows the principle rigidly is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. Srimad Bhagavatam 9:24 purport. Please give me the determination to always be engaged in executing your order, even if sometimes it appears as a severe type of penance. My only desire is to become your instrument in the service of your mission, and thus offer my love to you as something tangible. All glories unto you, Srila Prabhupada, the perfect example of sacrificing one's life for the service and satisfaction of Guru and Krishna. Your lowly servant, Virabahu Das.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So those were some short glimpses, some short clips of what went on this morning at our temple here at Hare Krishna Study Center. Another something that I want to mention as well was devotees would have taken it upon themselves to coordinate and prepare 125 different Bhoga offerings to offer to Srila Prabhupada. So that was quite amazing. As you can see here on screen, you can see some of the offerings. A Maha cake was there as well. And there's another, I think it's a Janamashmi cake from yesterday. So many offerings devotees would have prepared and offer with gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. You can see the 125th anniversary cake is there. All fresh flowers, vases, and decorations. So it's quite amazing, and to see the dedication and sacrifice of all the devotees. They have worked very hard to make this offering to Srila Prabhupada. And for those of you who are there, I'm sure that you all would have had a blissful time. So at this point in time, we have another video we would like to share, and then I will introduce Panchatattva Mataji to come on. So we have another video about Srila Prabhupada to share with you.
1966, the Lower East Side, New York. The building was humble, the membership small, yet Srila Prabhupada's vision encompassed the whole world. Amid the cacophony of a storefront at 26 2nd Avenue in New York, Srila Prabhupada had begun teaching the science of Krishna consciousness to a motley congregation drawn from the local community. Then, in his characteristically far-seeing way, he founded the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We shall call our society ISKCON. Prabhupada laughed playfully when he first coined the acronym. He had initiated the legal work of incorporation that spring, while still living on the Bowery. But even before its legal beginning, Prabhupada had been talking about his International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And so it had appeared in letters to India and in the Village Voice. A friend had suggested a title that would sound more familiar to Westerners, International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada had insisted, Krishna Consciousness. God was a vague term, whereas Krishna was exact and scientific. God consciousness was spiritually weaker, less personal. And if Westerners didn't know that Krishna was God, then the International Society for Krishna Consciousness would tell them by spreading his glories in every town and village. Krishna consciousness was Prabhupada's own rendering of a phrase from Srila Rup Goswami's Padyavali, written in the 16th century. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita, to be absorbed in the mellow taste of executing devotional service to Krishna. But to register ISKCON legally as a non-profit, tax-exempt religion required money and a lawyer. Carl Jurgens had already had some experience in forming a religious organization, and when he had met Prabhupada on the Bowery, he had agreed to help. He had contacted his lawyer, a young Jewish man named Stephen Goldsmith. Stephen Goldsmith had a wife and 2 children and an office on Park Avenue, yet he maintained an interest in spirituality. When Carl told him about Prabhupada's plan, he was immediately fascinated by the idea of setting up a religious corporation for an Indian Swami. He visited Prabhupada at 26 2nd Avenue and they discussed incorporation, tax exemption, Prabhupada's immigration status, and Krishna consciousness. Mr. Goldsmith visited Prabhupada several times. Once he brought his children who liked the soup Prabhupada cooked. He began attending the evening lectures, where he was often the only non-hippie member of the congregation. One evening, having completed all the legal groundwork and being ready to complete the procedures for incorporation, Mr. Goldsmith came to Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan to get signatures from the trustees for the new society. The Vedas describe that the time of the universe revolves through a cycle of 4 seasons or yugas, and Kali Yuga is the worst of times, in which all spiritual qualities of men diminish until humanity is finally reduced to a bestial civilization devoid of human decency. Yet, for 10,000 years after the advent of Lord Chaitanya, there is a possibility of a golden age of spiritual life, an eddy that runs against current of Kali Yuga, with a vision that soars off to the end of the millennium and far beyond, and yet, with his 2 feet planted solidly on 2nd Avenue, Srila Prabhupada has begun an international society for Krishna consciousness. He has many practical responsibilities. He has to pay rent, and he has to incorporate his society and pave the way for a thriving worldwide congregation of devotees. Somehow, he doesn't see his extremely reduced present situation as a deterrent from the greater scope of his divine mission. He knows that everything depends on Krishna, so whether he succeeds or fails is all up to the Supreme. He has only to try.
Mahaprabhu, who will be able to deliver this pure message of yours across the seas? Nitai, 500 years from now, I will send my pure representative, and he will not just spread these names here in Sri Mayapur Dham. He will not just spread these names all over India, but these names will enter into every single town and village in the world. Haribo! Haribo! Sankirtan ki jai!
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that, as you can see, that's a glimpse of Srila Prabhupada when he first arrived in New York City, and in the initial days of him in America, what it meant like and what was happening, and also the prediction of Srila Prabhupada would be coming to assist Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the holy names, the Hare Krishna mantra, throughout the world. So we are very fortunate to be part of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON to assist him as well in whatever little way we can. So at this point in time, we'd like to once again welcome all those of you who are joining in for this continued Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Prabhupada. So now I'd like to introduce Mother Panchatattva. We lovingly call Panchatattva Mataji is no stranger to us. She's from our ISKCON Longdonville Temple in Trinidad, and currently she's a temple president. So I'll tell you something. Just when I request Mataji to speak for this program was a few days ago, maybe like since last Friday or so. And this evening, when I sent her a reminder, she immediately called me, and they also had huge festivities in Trinidad from yesterday, Janamasmi and all the preparations for Janamasmi festival, and then for today morning also for preparing and organizing for Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja celebration there. And she was telling me what yesterday the kind of prasadam distribution they did 700 boxes plus sweets. So it's quite a lot of service. She was very tired, but nevertheless, she didn't want to decline this opportunity to be with the devotees. So we'd like to thank her very much to be with us here tonight, and let us all welcome Mataji in our usual way, chanting 3 times, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Mother Panchatattva. Thank you for joining, and please, over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Just trying to get this. Okay. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me. I know you did invite me some time ago. So thank you for this. First, let me offer my humble obeisances to all the devotees, the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. My humble obeisances to every one of you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Satarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it was very wonderful, Sachi Sutta Prabhu, to see the 125 offerings for Srila Prabhupada today. So amazing. So first I want to say thank you to the devotees, especially from the Hare Krishna Study Center, for taking the initiative to glorify Srila Prabhupada in such a wonderful way. This 125th parents' anniversary of our dear beloved Srila Prabhupada. I wasn't able to take in all the programs every day, but I did. I got some of it, and I'm sure that, you know, it's there. So in the future we can revisit and hear the wonderful memories and pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, you know, through his followers. So this morning, we had, because of the pandemic and the government has locked down all places of worship in Trinidad, but, you know, the devotees find a way to continue with our puja and our worship. So this morning we had our celebration at the temple, and different devotees were sharing their thoughts and gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. So I was also reflecting, you know, on this occasion, and we hear, even throughout the few days, we've been hearing so many memories of devotees and Prabhupada's disciples, how when they came in contact with Srila Prabhupada, they shared their beautiful memories. Second generation, we would not have had that opportunity to meet Srila Prabhupada in person. But yet, Srila Prabhupada, he is very much alive in our lives and in our hearts. So I was this morning, you know, in the temple, reflecting on some thoughts of, we always hear, of course, and it's very important, Srila Prabhupada, his position, the contributions that he has made, how he has touched millions of lives throughout the planet. And I was reflecting on that, especially this morning. And one thing came to mind is that Srila Prabhupada has given so much. He has given us. He has given, you know, this wonderful opportunity to each and every one. But my reflection took me to another level. I was thinking about our responsibility. In our ISKCON society, you know, we sometimes develop a sense of entitlement, and sometimes we would hear, you know, devotees say that you know, I have served in this movement for many years, and, you know, now I want to relax a little bit and I want to take it easy, you know, because I have worked very hard. So don't get me wrong, you know, I am not being critical of that, but I am saying that when we look at Srila Prabhupada's life, even up to his very last breath, he has given us the example of service to Krishna, service to others. Srila Prabhupada was translating his books and so on and preaching to help fallen conditioned souls. So we have to imbibe that mood that Srila Prabhupada has given us, the mood of compassion for other fallen conditioned souls. But of course, a drowning man can save no one. So first and foremost, we have to save ourselves. And how do we save ourselves? By following the instructions that Srila Prabhupada has given us, which is to chant our rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, hearing in the association of devotees. This is how we save ourselves. And then what do? We assist in this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the holy names also in every town and village, by helping other conditioned souls to tap into this mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these were some reflections that I had this morning. I was talking to the young people who were gathered. So like Guyana, Trinidad, we also have some, nice young boys and girls. And I was looking just now, as Sachi Sutta Prabhu was sharing the pictures with Srila Prabhupada in 1966 and so on. And you will see Srila Prabhupada was surrounded by a lot of young men and women. And this is an important factor in that we hear talk that, within the next decade or so, we may not have so many Srila Prabhupada's disciples on this planet. Many of them have left and some are preparing to leave the planet. So we have to look at succession planning. We have to look at our society, this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, whose hands this mission would be in. Of course, we know that Srila Prabhupada's books and his society would reign for 10,000 years, but we cannot sit on our laurels and expect it to happen. We have to put in the work. So today, as I said, I was reflecting on these things, and I thought about it that I always tell Prabhupada Dev Prabhu that he's doing it right in that he's focusing on training and educating young people. And if we look at Prabhupada's his methodology, it was to attract educated young men and women. And we know that Krishna consciousness is for everyone, every living entity, not only human beings. But to take the mission into the future, we have to be intelligent. And so we have to train and we have to educate our members. So I also was reflecting this morning on rights and responsibilities. We many times, even in the non-devotee world, people talk about their rights. This is my right and this is my right, and I have the right to do this and to get this and to do. But we forget our responsibilities. So as a member of this organization, we not only have rights, but we also have responsibilities. And we have to place emphasis on those responsibilities. It's nice, I was saying this morning that I heard this, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's Srila Prabhupada, so don't quote me on that. It could be one of the gurus. But I heard, we should not always think about what we could get, because we're getting so much. We get sustenance, we get nourishment from this society. We get the opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. So we're getting, but what are we giving? What are we giving? Sometimes we kind of lopsided. We only want to focus on what we can get. But we also have to focus on what we can give. As disciples, we learn that We could never repay the debt to the spiritual master. But at least we could try, you know, we could die trying. So the debt is of course, we cannot repay, but we could certainly try. And how do we try to repay this debt? By giving our life to this mission, by giving our life to the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So how do we do that? You know, we hear these things all the time, but how do we do it? Srila Prabhupada says we render devotional service, tangible devotional service. And sometimes we're not in a position to render tangible devotional service. So what do? We assist those who can render tangible devotional service. But somehow we get connected. Why did Srila Prabhupada establish so many centers around the world? He established these centers and installed deities so that we get connected. These deities that Srila Prabhupada has installed all over the world is so that the entire residents in each country or community can render direct service to Lord Sri Krishna. And in this way, become connected. This is our lifeline to Krishna, to render devotional service. So this is why we have all these centers Srila Prabhupada established, so that we get our sustenance, we get support when we engage in devotional service in the association of devotees. So Srila Prabhupada has given us everything. He has not just given us so much, he has given us everything. And on this day, this 125th anniversary of his appearance is a wonderful time for reflection and also for rededicating our lives, for recommitting our lives to this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are so fortunate, as Sachi Sutta Prabhu was saying earlier, to take for us. Srila Prabhupada has walked this planet not so long ago, and we have taken birth not so long after. And this is our great fortune. We are so fortunate, and yet we take it so casually. We are very complacent with our devotional service. We sometimes is the last thing we do, the first thing we drop. This resonated with me. You know, I think it was Triple B Maharaj, Brihad Bhagwat Maharaj, you know, when he was doing the seminars. I remember he was talking about this. He was talking about, you know, our lifestyle. And he said sometimes when we have we have so much to do, what the first thing we eliminate or we drop is our service. We have time for everything else but our devotional service. If we have some service to render, this is the first thing we cut out, you know, from our program. And this should be the last thing. Sometimes we have some service at the temple or something. And if it's the first thing if we're busy or so on, that's the first thing we drop off. We can't do our service. And this is because we're not committed. And we don't see how important it is for us and our spiritual progress and our spiritual benefit. So, as I said, you know, today for me is a day of reflection, of, you know, recommitting and showing gratitude also to Srila Prabhupada and this society. Srila Prabhupada built a house in which the whole world could live. And today, this society has, with so many wonderful devotees, we get such wonderful sadhu sangha right from Guyana. Throughout this pandemic, we were not able to travel, but we were in the association of such wonderful devotees. So it is amazing. It's wonderful. I feel blessed that, I have the opportunity in this lifetime to get this privilege to engage in some service in this wonderful ISKCON Society of Srila Prabhupada. So devotees, I thank you all so very much for this wonderful opportunity to share a few thoughts. I congratulate you all in Guyana. You have been planning and organizing such amazing programs and sharing with the devotees. And it has been even more important during this time because so many devotees are at home. They cannot, come out to the temples and so on. So you have, arranged a system in which they can still get sustenance and encouragement to continue in their devotional life. So my humble obeisances to all of you, and thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much for your presentation. So I would just like to say, as you were speaking, I was just reflecting. You were making a point about, maybe less than a decade or so, Srila Prabhupada, many of his disciples who are with us now, they may not be with us after a decade or so from now. And what that means, it's a very scary thing to think about, but it shows how much we should take advantage of your association now. And also like very much the point you were making about whenever we end up in some situation, the fastest thing for us to do is to give up our service. That's the first thing we want to cut out. But it shouldn't be like that, and you clearly highlighted that. So thank you, Mataji, once again for being so kind to all the devotees here. I know you're very tired from all the hours of services in preparation of Janamasmi and also Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja celebration. So at this point in time, I would like to invite His Grace Paramatma Prabhu, who will be reading his offering. So as part of the Vyasa Puja book that was compiled by Hare Krishna Study Center, Paramatma Prabhu would have wrote an offering on behalf of his family, he and his family. So I'd like to invite him to read that offering. And for those of you who are joining and may not be familiar with Paramatma Prabhu, he is the secretary of our Latin America Regional Governing Body Commission, and also he serves currently on our CIHE, or the Caribbean Institute for Higher Education, as a board of director member and as a teacher as well. So Paramatma Prabhu, thank you very much to be here with us this evening, and over to you. Also, one thing, Paramatma Prabhu, for many years in Guyana, every year he would have taken up this service to write an offering to Srila Prabhupada that would usually appear in the International Vyasa Puja book. Every year he has taken that service to write an offering to Srila Prabhupada on behalf of our ISKCON Guyana Yatra. So thank you, Paramatma Prabhu, for that service, and over to you.
Thank you, Srila Prabhu. My respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas who are present in this forum. Are you saying that I should just read the homage, or just give some reflections also?
So you can read the offering for now. Yes, read the offering.
Okay. All right. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. So this was an offering for those who are not familiar. Sachi Sutta briefly said it, but this year they did an amazing thing for this 125th anniversary of the parents of Srila Prabhupada. They compiled a Vyasa Puja book for the Hare Krishna Study Center. And I went to the temple this morning, and it was an amazing book with so many color pictures. And I have to say, I spent most of my time browsing it through. There were, such a wonderful offering of love, even from young devotees. I saw a 12-year-old girl, wrote an offering, right? So from 12-year-old, and I saw an offering from Satsvarup Maharaj also. So from the youngest to the oldest, were there in the book. So they were kind enough to allow me to write something. So this is what I wrote. It was very impromptu, because they just give me, I think, one day, to get it. So, dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to your divine grace. I was introduced to your Bhagavad Gita around 1975. And by the time I was halfway through, I began to wean off sinful activities. Because ISKCON was not established in Guyana then, I knew little about your exalted position. Later, from the Veda-based search, I found correspondences from you to Dr. Balwant Singh, that's the senior, Pitambar Dindyal and Suresh Chandra. Those are devotees who Prabhupada actually corresponded in Guyana. Then I realized that you had intentions to visit Guyana. After you left this mortal world, I met Suresh Chandra at his New Amsterdam home. He was an insurance officer, I have to say. And he showed me one of your original letter where you signed in blue ink pen. In one letter to Suresh Chandra dated August 11th, 1972, you wrote, quote, "So if you are able to follow these principles without fail, then you're as good as my disciple. And after you have practiced these things for a few months' time, then we can see you have formal initiation." When the first temple in Berbice was inaugurated around 1978, 1979, we used to worship you alone as the Acharya for ISKCON. Soon after, we were introduced to a zonal guru. Even though your divine grace appeared to leave this world, you continue to live through your books. Each of us has claim to a relationship with you through service in separation. And as founder Acharya, you will continue to be everyone's preeminent Shiksha Guru and everyone's ever well-wisher. The Krishna conscious gifts you brought are countless. Your spotless life story of courage and dedication against all odds captures our hearts. You defied natural law and created something most significant from nothing. Your accomplishments are so extraordinary that any comparison to others become a minimization of your position. In these Vyasa Puja homages, one can smell the sweet fragrance of concentrated love for you, love which is contagious because it springs from the heart, which is the seat of the soul. As one generation passes on this genuine love to the next generation, generation after generation, this love for you will be maintained for thousands of years. On the occasion of the 125th anniversary of your divine appearance, we humbly pray not to forget you even for one moment. In this way, we know that we will never forget Krishna, because you, Srila Prabhupada, are the embodiment of the perfected stage of pure absorption in Krishna. Your servant, Paramatma Das. Thank you very much.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you very much, Paramatma Prabhu, for that very beautiful offering.
And it is so nice to hear that you would have personally.
Sachi, I don't know if it's just me, but I find your volume level to be quite low. I
Hare
don't know
Krishna,
it.
Hare
I,
Krishna. Is it better now, bro?
it's still quite low, and I have my volume up for Paramatma. It was down, and it was quite clear for Mother Panchatattva as well. I don't know if it's just me having this issue, or others might be having the issue also.
I am having the same issue. I am barely hearing Sachisuta Prabhu.
I'm
Krishna, it's the same here too, Prabhu.
using my phone, so that's this is for the first time I'm using my phone for this Zoom. Well, let me see, just one second, please.
Hare Krishna, but I'm hearing very clear.
Can you hear me, Hare Krishna Prabhu?
Yeah, very clear.
Well, I'm sure probably hearing very clear because he in Guyana are very close. Maybe because we in Trinidad are very far, we haven't that issue. I'm sure Shama Chandra logged on because he in Panama even further.
So I'll try to speak a little louder. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. So thank you very much, Paramatma Prabhu. I'll just like to say that we're very. It's very nice to hear that you would have met the person who Srila Prabhupada would have wrote, and you would have actually got to see that original letter from the person in Amsterdam. So thank you very much for mentioning that, and also Srila Prabhupada's taking an excerpt from Srila Prabhupada's letter. At this point, we'd like to invite His Grace Radhakishore Nanda Prabhu. He will read his offering to Srila Prabhupada first, and then we'll hear from His Grace Shanta Vigraha Prabhu. So Radhakishore Nanda Prabhu, he's serves on the management board, a member of the management board of Hare Krishna Study Center, and he's also the head cook. So Radhakishore Prabhu, can you please go right ahead?
Yeah, but just give me a few seconds. Let me get it. Hare Krishna.
It's on the screen as well for those of you who are, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's very clear.
Thank you. My offering reads as follows. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances, all grace to your divine grace. Your Holiness, on this auspicious day of your 125th Vyasa Puja, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to you for all the things you have done for me and the world at large. If I were to write about all the wonders you have done for humanity, it would definitely be a never-ending journey. However, I'm writing a few thoughts to let you know how much I'm indebted to you and this Krishna conscious movement. Firstly, you taught us how to go back to God, how to go back to Krishna, either by relishing the Lord's prasadam or by chanting the holy name. Without this Krishna conscious movement, I would have never been able to be initiated by your loving disciple, His Holiness Veerabahu Guru Maharaj. Your divine grace, you've made endless sacrifice to distribute your holy name freely to this world amidst your health conditions. Definitely, there isn't anything that we can do to repay you, but we'll always try our utmost best to continue propagating this Krishna conscious movement. So, my dear loving Srila Prabhupada, I want to say thank you again for descending on earth and save me from the effects of Kali Yoga. I am unsure what I have been today without your divine grace. Your forever servant, Radhakishore Ananda Das. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Radhakishore Prabhu, for sharing your offering with us. So at this time, I would like to invite His Grace Shanta Vigraha Prabhu, who will speak for a few minutes. And Shanta Vigraha Prabhu, for those of you who are joining and may not be familiar with Shanta Vigraha Prabhu, he is from our ISKCON Trinidad Yatra, and he's a teacher by profession. Also, currently, one of his main services these days is that he's also a board of director member on our Caribbean Institute for Higher Education faculty. He also currently he's teaching the Nectar of Devotion as part of the Bhakti Shastri program that is being run in the Caribbean here. So Shantavigar Prabhu also has been very resourceful, very kind to us, especially like of recent times, just when we were planning our festival for this 5 days celebration for Srila Prabhupada's 125th anniversary. We would call on him from time to time to get his advice, to get his opinion, and he's always been very kind to us and helpful. Shantavigar Prabhu, welcome and over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Is my level okay, Sachi Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I'm hearing you clear.
Okay. I was meditating on Srila Prabhupada's appearance, especially as it's quite a milestone, 125 years since Srila Prabhupada made his divine appearance in this world. And I was thinking that if we were to examine the history of the world, actually, we may find that the history of the world is basically the history of a few great men. You know, even though changes would erupt in society from time to time, it's always by the urging and by the inspiration or by the motivation of a few exceptionally great men. And the history textbooks would show us that. For example, how the history of the world would have been so different if Columbus hadn't dared to go against the societal understanding that he could reach the east by sailing west, or for that matter, that the earth was flat, and if you go a certain distance, you'll fall over the edge. But Columbus had faith. And Srila Prabhupada actually mentions in the second canto of Bhagavatam that Columbus was able to do what he did because of his previous devotional service to the Lord. You know, echoing a point that whatever great things great men do throughout history, and even the great men who are within smaller spheres of societies and nations do, it is because of some connection to God, whether in this life or previously. And when we look at the history of the world, you look at people like Martin Luther King, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi, even our local heroes who may have contributed to societal change in our own countries. One thing that we can see is that all of these men, and especially the great men of world history, they would have made changes or catalyzed changes that rippled throughout the world and literally changed the course of human history. You know, and what I would like to say is Srila Prabhupada is not less than any of them in any way. And additionally, Srila Prabhupada, for his contribution, is more than any of them, and all of them put together at once. Because Srila Prabhupada's wave of change didn't just take place on the material level, but it takes place and has ripples beyond this world, beyond this planet even. Srila Prabhupada once said, he was asked, what is his mission? And Srila Prabhupada said that my mission is that this Krishna consciousness should be spread throughout the entire universe. He didn't say world. quite interesting in on this particular instance. He said that this Krishna consciousness should be spread throughout this universe. I mean, one thing that is said of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said of himself, is my disease is that I cannot think small. You know, and Srila Prabhupada had that vision that everyone should become Krishna conscious in the entire universe. So when we reflect on this question, you know, like what makes a great man great? On one hand, that they make such a tide of change or catalyze or initiate or motivate such a tide of change in the world that their name will be remembered across generations, across borders, across nations, across racial divides, across gender, even across religious persuasions. But on the other hand, one of the ways I like to reflect on Srila Prabhupada is that the facet of greatness that even though they may have come to such a level of greatness, there are very few who can maintain their common touch or their human courtesy with which they would deal with the persons who have come to know them and who have come in touch with them. And Srila Prabhupada was one of those persons. That even though he was a world acharya, even though he was the leader of a movement and organization that was creating massive changes and affecting not only the people of the day, but people for many generations to come. And even for the next 10,000 years to come, Srila Prabhupada, the wake of Srila Prabhupada's ship would be felt. Srila Prabhupada always was a very simple, very humble, a very tolerant, and a very human person. He was somebody that you wanted to be around. And what I find very inspirational is to hear how Srila Prabhupada was as a person. It's very easy that sometimes Srila Prabhupada's position becomes institutionalized. That we often refer to Srila Prabhupada as the preeminent Siksha Guru of ISKCON. And, you know, many generations of ISKCON members or persons who come in contact with ISKCON, their preeminent Siksha comes from Srila Prabhupada's teachings. That's very nice. You know, it's essential. I'm not minimizing that in any way. But one thing I've found is when I hear the personal interactions that Srila Prabhupada has with his many disciples, especially in the memories tapes and how they would recall Srila Prabhupada's dealing with them, his personality, his love, his affection, his sense of humor. It is something that goes beyond the institutionalization of a position. But in hearing those recollections, we get to know Srila Prabhupada as a person. And love is shared between persons. Love is not shared from a person to a position. Love is shared from one person to another person. That is where the exchange of rasa takes place. And even on a more deep level than appreciating Srila Prabhupada as a position in terms of the greatness that he achieved and the greatness that he exploded in this world. When we understand Srila Prabhupada as a person and appreciate him as a person, on that platform, we can actually begin to appreciate in a very intimate way that each and every one of us can still to this day endeavor for a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada himself said that when he was leaving the US for the first time and going back to India, one of his disciples, I can't remember if it was Yamuna or Govinda Dasi, they took his plane ticket and passport. And they said, you know, We want you to stay here, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, that I will be in India and I will chant Hare Krishna in India. And you chant Hare Krishna here in the United States. And in this way, so long as we are chanting together, wherever we are always tightly bunched up together. And there are a few stories like that I was reflecting on today that I heard that really bring to light some different facets of Srila Prabhupada's personality. And with your permission, I'd like to share those very briefly. One is of Srila Prabhupada's level of tolerance, especially tolerance for those who were having difficulty. On the one hand, he was very stern, but on the other hand, he was very merciful, and his mercy never decreased. There was one devotee in India who was having problems following the regulative principles. And what was the regulative principle he was having trouble following? He couldn't give up smoking ganja. Or as we would say sometimes, he just loved to smoke weed. and this was a problem that was repeated. And eventually, Srila Prabhupada advised Tamal Krishna Maharaj that you tell him that if he does not stop, then I will have no choice but to kick him out of the ashram. Tell him, because my mercy is running out and my mercy will stop. Unless he stops smoking weed, then my mercy for him will stop. It will no longer be there. And Tamal Krishna relayed the message. And then Tamal Krishna came back and he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, you said, something very, very strong, that, that if this devotee did not stop what he was doing, then your mercy for him will no longer be there. And Tamal Krishna very, shyly asked, he said, Srila Prabhupada, is that true? And Srila Prabhupada said, he smiled. He said, no, but it cannot be that I can no longer have mercy for anyone. In another telling of this story, I heard that Srila Prabhupada said that the mercy of Lord Nityananda is unlimited. And Srila Prabhupada, being the pure representative of Lord Nityananda, his mercy is unlimited. Now, that does not mean that we can do any and everything we like and expect Srila Prabhupada's mercy on us. Sometimes that mercy comes in the form of a swift and firm boot. But it is so much nicer to get mercy in the form of warmth and encouragement and love and appreciation. Mercy in the form of the carrot is so much more appreciable than mercy in the form of the stick or the boot. And so Srila Prabhupada, he exhibits a very high level of tolerance. But from our side, it is not that we should take advantage of it. Another facet of Srila Prabhupada's personality is that of his appreciation for the service done by others. Just recently, we were discussing in the Nectar of Devotion in chapter 1. Srila Prabhupada was speaking about the quality of Sri Krishna Karshani. And what is that? That devotional service is so powerful that it is the only thing that can control Krishna. Sri Krishna Karshani. And in that section, in commenting on that, he said that a devotee is someone who appreciates the service performed by others. Directly in Srila Prabhupada's books. A devotee always appreciates the service that is rendered by others. And there's a very nice story that illustrates how Srila Prabhupada didn't only say that, but Srila Prabhupada would do it. In Calcutta, they had just constructed or established a book warehouse. In India, they call it a go down. Why? Because you go down and you get what you want. But it's a storage area for keeping books that would go out for distribution. And the devotee in charge of that was a devotee by the name of Prasanatma. And Garga Muni was there. Garga Muni was Brahmananda Prabhu's brother. And he would go and break the lock to the go down, take whatever books he wanted, and go and distribute or do whatever he wanted with it. And Prashanatma Prabhu went to Srila Prabhupada and complained that, Srila Prabhupada, you put me in charge of this go down, but your Gagamuni, he's going and he's breaking the lock and doing whatever he wants inside of the go down. That this shouldn't be. And Srila Prabhupada looked at Prasamatma and very innocently said to him, he said that let him do whatever he wants. That in the beginning, he helped me so much, especially in the early days. And Srila Prabhupada, even though it was not an ideal situation, he tolerated and appreciated. He tolerated Gargamuni's behavior because of his deep level of appreciation and gratitude for the immense service that Gargamuni did in the beginning in helping to establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. When ISKCON was nothing and Prabhupada had nothing, he had Gargamuni and he had Brahmananda and he had others. And Prabhupada, he appreciated the level of service and the level of surrender that they gave to him. Srila Prabhupada, even though he became a world acharya, he was indifferent to his external surroundings. There was one time, I think it was in the Hilton Hotel in Japan or Tokyo or some other country. I think it was Japan or maybe Hong Kong. I stand to be corrected on the location. But they had procured the same suite for Prabhupada that the Shah of Iran had stayed in. Imagine how palatial this room was. And Srila Prabhupada called a press conference and many reporters came. And the reporters asked him that, Swamiji, a Swami is supposed to be very simple, but yet we find you are living in such grand opulence. And Prabhupada, being very courteous, being very conscientious, he tried to explain to them that actually anything and everything can be used in Krishna's service. But he felt that they weren't getting the point, and the conversation went back to the same point that you're supposed to be living very simply, but yet it seems that you are living in such a lavish setting. And it should be known that Srila Prabhupada actually appreciated that room and commented as such when he was given that room, the same room that the Shah of Iran stayed in, the best suite in the entire hotel. And Srila Prabhupada, he immediately retorted to the reporters that if, for me personally, I could live and stay very comfortably below a straw hut. I could stay below a straw hut, no problem. Below a tree even, or in a straw hut. But if I stay below a tree or in a straw hut and I call a press conference, will any of you come? And immediately they understood. It was practicality. And it was not something that Srila Prabhupada was just saying to impress them. In, I think, 1976 or early 1977, when His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami was establishing ISKCON Bhubaneswar, the land there was practically speaking forested, and there was no running water, there was no electricity, and was literally just a hut. And Srila Prabhupada, even though he was offered the best room in the nearby hotel in that area, Srila Prabhupada said, no, I will stay where my disciple is. I will stay with him in that hut. And it was such a very difficult time that many devotees who were staying there with Gaur Govinda Swami could not remain. I remember reading Gaur Govinda Maharaj's biography. While he was giving Bhagavatam class, a cobra came into the class and raised its head. And without even batting an eyelid or stopping his Bhagavatam class, Gaur Govinda Swami simply grabbed the snake and threw it out of the hut. So this was the kind of setting Srila Prabhupada was willing to stay in. And another aspect of Srila Prabhupada's personality is that he himself was prepared to do everything his disciples was doing, and even more than his disciples were doing. And there's a very nice incident that illustrates this. Some reporters came to see Srila Prabhupada, and they were asking questions about how much sleep his disciples got that they could see that the the facilities in the temples of the ashram was very limited, and there were many people staying. They were waking up very early, working till very late at night. And the reporters asked that, they sleep so less. And they asked Srila Prabhupada, how much do you sleep? So the implication, it was a loaded question, that they wanted to show that here it is Srila Prabhupada, who is living in the lap of luxury, getting all his rest and everything, all his needs catered for. And these young boys and girls are working without sleep and without pay. And Srila Prabhupada very calmly responded. He said, I go to sleep at about 10 p.m. and I wake up about 12 a.m. And they were, shocked. And Madhu Dwisha, one of Srila Prabhupada's very dear disciples, chimed in. It's true. It's true. Srila Prabhupada only sleeps for about 4 hours. And Srila Prabhupada shot a look across the room at Madhu Dwisha. And then he looked back at the reporters and he said, actually, I go to bed at 10 p.m. and I wake up by 12 a.m., which means 2 hours. And Mother Dusha relented. No, yes, it's true. Srila Prabhupada only sleeps about 2 hours. And this was the sacrifice that Srila Prabhupada made. He would ask us and his followers to be very restricted and regulated in the amount of sleep that we got, so it doesn't become an issue and turn into laziness. There's a saying that Srila Prabhupada made one time. He said, too much sleep results in laziness, but too less sleep results in craziness. So one has to know what is his need according to the body. But Srila Prabhupada, he always set that example, not intentionally, let me show them that I don't sleep. Not like that, naturally. And Srila Prabhupada would encourage his followers by doing the same thing that he was asking them to do. So he could be doing at least what they were doing, and in most cases, much more. So in this way, like I find when we hear about how Srila Prabhupada used to interact with the public, when we hear how Srila Prabhupada used to interact with his disciples, I'll tell one more story. I know time is limited, but I'll tell one more story. I heard this from Burijan Prabhu. His wife is a very nice devotee also. If I remember correctly, her name was Jagatarani Mataji. And they were arranged marriage, like practically speaking. The first time they met practically was when they got married. And they were assisting in establishing Krishna consciousness in Hong Kong. And they were having very difficult times, and especially for Jagatarani, she was actually an up-and-coming actress in the US and dropped everything to join the Krishna consciousness movement. And it was a bit difficult for her. And Srila Prabhupada, like he was speaking to Burjan Prabhu, and eventually he asked, like how she was doing. And Burjan actually said, Srila Prabhupada, she's having some difficulty. It's very difficult for her. And Prabhupada said, call her inside. And she came inside. Prabhupada asked her and consoled her. And Prabhupada looked at her, and he looked at his hand, and he took a gold ring from his hand, and he gave it to her. And what does that show? That Srila Prabhupada understands that those who have taken the risk to join the Krishna consciousness movement, not only that, but those who are sacrificing in his mission to spread Krishna consciousness, they undergo great difficulty. And Srila Prabhupada would go out of his way to comfort them and encourage them. And Mataji still has that ring and she wears it. One night, Gurujan said that she somehow inadvertently took the ring off. And when she woke up the next morning, she couldn't find it and she was in hysterics. Burjan said, I had the chance to be the hero in this story because I found the ring and returned it to her. So Srila Prabhupada, he was such a beautiful person, and he never lost his simplicity, his humility, his tolerance, despite being a world acharya whose presence rippled a tidal wave of change that would be felt for the next 10,000 years. In closing, I'll read one verse or a couple of verses that was composed by one of my friends. His name is Hari Parshad Das, and he's a Sanskrit scholar. And he wrote these two verses in glorification of Srila Prabhupada on the occasion of his 125th, the anniversary of his appearance. The verse is, Kritam vina harar dhyanam, tretam vina harar makaha, vina dwaparam haryarcha, bhumau yena prasarataha. Shri Srimat Prabhupada Sankirtanardhikarakam Paramacharya Varyam Tam Pranamami Puna Puna. He says that everywhere on this earth, Bhumau Yena Prasaritaha. What did Srila Prabhupada do? That Kritam Vina, even though it wasn't Satya Yuga, Kritam Harar Dhyanam, he propagated meditation on Hari. That Tritam Vina, even though it is not Trita Yuga, Harar Makaha, he propagated fire sacrifice. And Vina Dwaparam, even though it is not Dwapar Yuga, what did he do? Hari Archa. He propagated throughout the world the worship of the deity form of the Lord. Sri Srimat Prabhupada that unto that personality, Sankirtanardhi Karakam, who causes the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to increase in so many ways, unto our revered Param Guru, named Srila Prabhupada, we offer our respectful obeisances again and again. Pranamami Puna Puna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Shantavirga Prabhu, thank you very much for joining in this evening and for sharing with us some reflections and pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, which helps us to more and more understand the personality of Srila Prabhupada and the love he had for his disciples and his compassion for everyone, basically. Also, thank you for sharing those verses of glorification to Srila Prabhupada by His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu. So this time we'd like to, as we're coming on to the end of this evening session, I would like to invite His Grace Srila Prabhu to read his offering. He wrote to Srila Prabhupada as part of the Vyasa Puja book that has been offered by the devotees here, and then we'll have a concluding video which Hari Kirtan will play, which tells about the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shanyavari Pastyatare Shatarine. My dear beloved Srila Prabhupada, please accept my most humble obeisance at the dust of your lotus feet on this most auspicious occasion of Vyasa Puja celebration. I consider myself very fortunate to be able to see and celebrate this most glorious day of your 125th appearance anniversary. Srila Prabhupada, I was not able to have your physical association, but yet still, here I am, a part of this magnificent house that you built for which the whole world can live, your ISKCON. This is due to the fact you are not an ordinary soul. You came and just sat under that huge tree in Tompkins Square Park with your small drum, holding its straps in your left hand, bracing the drum against your body, and with your right hand you played intricate mridanga rhythms while chanting the holy names of Krishna. Just by simply doing that, you are able to spiritually transform so many souls who are today some of the greatest leaders, and they are transforming conditioned souls like myself to take to this Krishna consciousness movement. This reveals how glorious of a person you are, although you are not here physically. Your disciples and grand disciples is making sure that the mission that you would have set out for, spreading of Krishna consciousness throughout the Western countries, is more and more manifesting like wildfire all over the world. And that is because of your divine grace, empowerment, and blessing that you would have instilled in everyone you came in contact with. Srila Prabhupada, there aren't enough words to express my gratitude for what you have given to all of us, especially myself. I am forever indebted to you. Thank you for saving me through your books and disciples from these dangerous fangs of Maya. Srila Prabhupada, I am humbly asking for your blessing so that I can be able to join with my fellow God brothers and sisters in working towards one goal, which is making your ISKCON a household name and spreading Krishna consciousness to everyone I meet. Happy Vyasa Puja, Srila Prabhupada. Your legacy will live on forever. Your most insignificant servant, Srila Prem Das. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'd like to thank everyone for joining. We especially like to thank all our presenters, all the devotees who would have read their offerings, who would have speak during the program, the session this evening. And we like to close by sharing one video. This is a video that has been put together by the devotees on this occasion of Srila Prabhupada's 125th appearance anniversary, which describes the wonderful qualities of Srila Prabhupada. So, Har Kirtan, if you're
Hare
there,
Krishna.
would you like to share the video?
Yes,
Prabhu.
Archie, just before you go for the video, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the devotees once again who has participated in so many ways to make our offering to Srila Prabhupada a special one, I will say. So one of the things that will happen, because 100 and plus offerings, as you would have noticed, those of us who would have followed us, that from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and today, that there weren't so much of the offerings that we could have get to read. So what we're planning is that we will send out some in Zoom link and dates, time, and like that, that we will be arranging some special forum over the next 2 weeks or so to hear from to give devotees the opportunity to read their offerings. So I just want that the devotees be aware of that there will be some programs where we can hear almost all the devotees read their offerings. Even part of the Sunday program this Sunday, we'll still be hearing devotees' offerings. And don't think, well, Vyasa Puja 125th anniversary is finished. It is actually a whole year celebration. It now begins. So it will go from now to next year, Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja next year. So we'll encourage devotees to take up different projects and different ways, different activities in different areas that you can make some tangible offering to Srila Prabhupada, which will go a far way in making Prabhupada becomes much, much more known to us, first of all, and then to society or to the world at large. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
a 70-year-old devotee of Krishna, went to America in a cargo ship in 1965, and after an enormous struggle, he established an institution with a handful of young Americans. With them, he started this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Within the short span of 11 years, Srila Prabhupada not only spread this movement practically through all the countries of the world, but he established 108 temples in all the major cities of the world. And this is how we can see that in order to fulfill his prediction, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reserved the credit to one of his most intimate devotee, and that is His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
The Krishna consciousness movement is not for the wretched, unfortunate class of men. No. It is meant for the most fortunate man. Anyone who has taken to Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered as the most fortunate man, because he has got the line of action, how his life will be perfect. Therefore, anyone who is in Krishna consciousness and discharging the duties nicely, he is the most fortunate.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's 125th appearance anniversary ki jai. So those are some of Srila Prabhupada's contributions and how he would have impacted the world, and also as a pure devotee, as a direct representative of Lord Krishna. You can see some of the qualities that have been presented, the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. So once again, we would like to thank all the devotees for joining in and participating this evening. Please feel free to exit the meeting. Thank you very much, and we look forward to have your presence for the upcoming sessions as the Prabhupada would have highlighted. Jai Hare Krishna.